The financial crime team from the Commission have just arrived at the firm's offices to begin their on-site visit. They are meeting with the board to discuss at a high level the firm's business, its corporate governance arrangements, business risk assessment, risk appetite, and general AML/CFT controls. Tonya is leading the visit. Joining her is Wade and Douglas. Let's see how they get on.
Good morning, and thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. My name is Tonya, and my colleagues, Wade and Douglas, we're from the financial crime team. And Douglas and Wade will interject with queries during the visit.
And I'll be taking a note of the minutes, so if you could kindly tell us your names for the record, please.
Yeah, sure. My name's Nick. I'm the Managing Director of Salarie Financial Services.
I'm Andrew, and I'm the Chairman.
Hi, my name's Paul. I'm the MLRO Company Secretary and Client Services Team B Team Leader.
Okay, Paul, that sounds like quite a few hats you're wearing. How do you manage the conflicts and the time pressures with those roles effectively?
Yeah, well, I have a great team who provide me with plenty of support when I need it.
Okay, well, that sounds promising. Like I said, we're from the financial crime team, and therefore the focus of the visit is your firm's AML/CFT controls.
CFT? CFT? Should I know what that means?
Countering the financing of terrorism, Andy.
Oh, yeah. Well, we do lots of that around here.
Well, that's good to know.
Well, can we just start by talking about the firm's risk appetite? What would you say your risk appetite is?
Yeah, sure. We have a low risk appetite.
Yeah, low risk.
Yeah, definitely low.
Low risk, okay. Well, that's quite curious because your latest financial crime risk return says you've got 54% of your clients rated as high risk. How would you say that fits with a low risk appetite?
Well, clearly we have a high risk clients, but it just feels like a low risk type of business. We have robust policies, procedures and controls in place. And I make sure that the board reviews the business risk assessment annually and pays it the appropriate attention it deserves.
Yeah, and on that point, we have a compliance monitoring programme which we review on an annual basis, and it actually has 18 different tests looking at our AML/CFT controls.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I would just like to clarify that the Commission is not against firms having high-risk business. I mean, we just need to understand that firms have appropriate policies, procedures and controls to mitigate the risks of those clients. And I mean, we have seen quite a few firms in the bailiwick with those controls.
Well, that's really good to hear, and I'm sure that we'll fall into that category.
So moving on, we note that during our last visit to your firm, we identified a number of issues with corporate governance culture, and also AML controls on client transaction requests. Those issues became RMPs, so all I want to know is an update on those mitigation programs.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's say the majority of the issues stem from our previous Managing Director, Mr. Rasputin. Let's just say some of the junior staff were pushed into certain transactions that maybe they shouldn't have done. But the whole vibe of the company's completely changed.
Much better.
Yeah, and if I could add, obviously we had some RMPs in place, but we've complied with all of your colleagues' requests, and we've had them all closed off, and we actually had a letter kind of formally concluding the visit recently.
Yeah, and on top of that, we've just had a final report. We had an external auditor, cost a fortune, mind you, to come in and review our policies and procedures, and but at least the feedback's been pretty good from that.
Well, that does sound positive. Is it possible to have a copy of that audit report, please?
For you, Tonya, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, can we start with a few more questions on your AML/CFT controls? What would you say the three greatest AML/CFT risks are that your business faces?
Money laundering, terrorist financing and bribery and corruption, would you say, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, they're quite general topics. How would they specifically affect your business and your firm and your clients?
Yeah, I mean, if I can jump in, clearly we take the risks of money laundering very seriously. We have an AML procedures manual in place, and we review that annually. We have training that we give to our employees on an annual basis.
Here the firm has not adequately responded to key questions surrounding its risk appetite and business risk assessment. In order to meet the requirements of the rules and regulations, it is expected that the firm is familiar with its own policies, procedures and controls, as well as having a sufficient understanding of the potential risks its business may face. Furthermore, there may be issues regarding Paul's role as the MLRO, Company Secretary and Client Services Team Leader. The Commission team members are in a room set aside by the firm to review client files. They typically look at a sample of files, spread of risk ratings and client activities. The team will discuss anything that they find unusual or confusing on the files amongst themselves as a sense check. before seeking clarification from the firm. Let's see how they are getting on with their reviews. I wonder if they found anything concerning.
This is an interesting one.
Oh, yeah.
There's this client and he has 2 passports, one from Bolivia and one from New Zealand, but they have different names on them.
Oh, can I have a look?
Yeah, of course.
Have you seen these photos? He's had some work done.
Yeah.
He looks 10 years younger than the second one. It was made 5 years after the first one.
Why would he do that?
Well, that's what I'll have to find out. And there's also a few emails here, a few strange emails. The client is asking the firm to refer to him only from the name on his Bolivian passport. And there's also some emails where he's asking the firm whether there's been any recent transactions that were above 10,000 US dollars. It just sounds like an interesting combination of requests.
Do you think he's maybe trying to avoid the attentions of the taxman?
Well, 10,000 US dollars is a common reporting threshold, so I think we'll just have to ask a few more questions about that. And also, I've noticed that the last 3 years' risk reviews are also late.
Oh, right. The risk reviews are late on this one too. This one's got an interesting little note. It looks like the firm are trying to open a new bank account for this client. And the bank sent a questionnaire that they want the client to fill out. And the client's flicked it to his lawyer, and the lawyer seems less than impressed. The lawyer's saying, who needs the additional information, you or the bank? If it's the bank, why don't you use a different bank? Do you need help locating a different bank?
Sounds like they need a new lawyer to me. Anyway, on this file, I've got a number of personal due diligence questionnaires that have been completed on the directors of the company. One of them is listed as having a career as a caretaker for a school.
A caretaker? What? As in a janitor? What are those skills going to bring to the board?
Well, this is my point, really. It could be that they're a nominee director, so I think we need to ask some questions. There's also the additional fact that they're late by 2 years for their risk reviews, so another one.
More overdue reviews. This one's strange. There's a file note on here saying the firm received their fees in cash from the client's taxi driver. He handed over the cash in a brown paper bag, and they've made a note of that, but I can't see anything on there about the CDD on him at all.
Mamma mia.
Yeah, here we go again. There's no link on the file between the client or the taxi driver, or why the taxi driver's paying. Why isn't the client using their own bank account to pay their fees?
Well, this guy here, we've got an African pet. They've done risk reviews. They've rated him as high risk. There's just a couple of questions around his source of wealth. It's listed as a number of properties around Kinshasa, and I can't see anything else. So I think I'm going to have to ask a few more questions about that.
Oh, I think you need to add that one to the list as well, Douglas. Well, my last file here is linked to mining investments in West Africa.
Ah, yes. Well, West Africa. I've seen some good business coming from there. It's just really a question of understanding, knowing who your clients are. So just be careful, really.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, but I'm not too sure about this guy, and I'm not sure about the firm's controls over this relationship. I mean, there's a file note here from the MLRO about one of the shareholders, Mr. T, and it looks like he became involved with the company about 6 months ago. But only a couple of months ago, the firm actually noticed it. So the MLRO has done some research, which is good, but it looks like he has suspected links to arms trading in West Africa.
Arms trading. Let me check. It's Mr. T.
Yeah.
So the A-team have gone rogue in West Africa.
Yeah,
Right.
well...
Doesn't match with the low risk appetite, does it?
Well, it looks like the MLRO assessed the research that you conducted on this guy, and he compiled a file note. So listen up. I do not believe that this sort of business fits within our risk appetite, and I believe that being involved with this individual could lead to reputational risk for the bailiwick. The GFSC would not be happy. But despite the red flags, the firm still carried on with the relationship.
Well, doesn't the MLRO have a veto power?
Well, it doesn't look like it, and it doesn't even look like the firm are giving much consideration to the MLRO's opinions. And also, on this one as well, the risk reviews have been late for the last few years as well.
I think we're seeing a pattern here. From what we've seen from the files, they are running late on risk reviews, so I think we'll need to understand why they are late and what's going on there. And whilst we're at it, can I just check with you both, what do you think about the board's assertion that it's a low risk appetite for the firm.
So what, they've got clients involved in mining in West Africa who may or may not be involved in the arms trade, and they've got African PEPs with holding property as source of wealth. I would say no, it's not a low risk appetite. What do you think, Tonya?
I don't think it's low.
I've got to say I tend to agree with both of you there. I don't think it's a low risk appetite. What we'll have to do is just get some questions. Well, we've got a meeting coming up with the administrator, so we'll see if we can get some answers to questions there. And we'll take it from that point on, I guess.
Okay.
Well, that was insightful. However, there are plenty of questions that have not been sufficiently answered, and there appear to be more questions to be followed up with on regard to the completion of the risk reviews. The team will need to take this up with the firm before they can make a final assessment. The information on the file reviews prompted the team to meet with the client relationship managers responsible for the files reviewed. Following up from this, the on-site team are meeting with the directors of the firm to discuss their concerns further.
Okay, so we've had a look through the files that you provided to us, and we have some follow-up questions on some information that we couldn't find on file. But I mean, it could be that it's just us not knowing our way around the system.
Probably, but please carry on.
Okay, so can we firstly talk about your AML risk reviews and the outstanding action points that derive from those reviews? Now, we noticed from the file reviews that there was quite a high number of risk reviews that were 12 to 24 months overdue. So would you be able to just explain to me your plan to address these?
Paul, I think you're best to take this.
Sure, yeah. Well, admittedly, we have fallen behind a little with our reviews. However, this was picked up by our CMP and we are addressing it. You may have noticed we've got a contractor in now who's going to help us through these. Okay,
do you know why they fell behind?
Well, when Mr. Rasputin left, he took a number of employees with him, and there have also been some high-risk projects like FATCA and CRS reporting, and sadly something had to give, so it was the risk reviews that were put to one side.
Okay, I see.
Just asking a further question on that point. We have seen from the files that the reviews have been carried out, but from these reviews we see the number of action points are outstanding. I think there's been a total I've seen of around about 500 outstanding action points. Why are there so many?
I think it's likely to be down to the contractor's knowledge of the clients rather than the clients themselves.
Okay. And do you have a plan of how you're going to work on these action points?
Well, I guess we'll just have to work harder and get them done as quick as possible.
Okay. Well, I'd appreciate if you could keep us informed of progress towards that end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I could start with one of the questions from my file review. It appears... I've got a question around the receipt of your firm's management fees, and it appears that you received the fees from a taxi driver in cash. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Did that raise any concerns with you at all?
Well, I've got to admit it's a little bit unusual, but at the end of the day, it was the right amount. He handed it over. You know, we made a record of it just to confirm that that's what happened, but otherwise, you know, what's your problem?
Well, I can see that you've documented receipt of the cash, but I can't see any consideration of any AML risk associated with receiving cash in this matter. For example, what would your firm's bribery and corruption policy say?
Paul?
I don't know, I'm afraid. I'll have to look into that for you. It was before my time.
Okay, well, if we can liaise with that going forward, that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay, Paul, if I can carry on with you as well, please. I noticed from my client file here that you completed a file note with regard to a shareholder, Mr. T.
Oh, yes.
So I see that in the note you're recommending exiting the relationship because you think that the individual is exposing the firm and the bailiwick to reputational risk. And it states that despite your recommendations, the board still carried on with that relationship. So I just wanted to know, as MLRO, do you have a right of veto?
Well, on new business, yes. But as this is existing business...
I'll take it from here. Tonya, we take the recommendations of the MLO very seriously, but ultimately it's the board's decision whether to maintain a client relationship. And although Paul's points were pertinent, upon further investigation, we decided to maintain the relationship.
Okay, I see that you've done further investigation. I mean, I couldn't see it on file, so is it possible to have a copy of that information?
Yeah, I've got it in my office. You can have it, Tonya.
Okay, thank you very much. So moving on, I have the client file here, and the client has 2 passports, one from Bolivia and one from New Zealand, with 2 different names on it. I mean, it just sounds a bit unusual to me. Can you just give me a rationale for that?
Well, you'll have to ask him that.
Can I just clarify, because you are the administrators of this company, it is your responsibility to research any unusual behaviour?
Yes, of course, but to be honest, he's a bit of an eccentric and he's going through a messy divorce and he just doesn't want his wife to get hold of his assets.
Okay, but I have noticed also some emails where he's asking you to refer to him only by the name on his Bolivian passport. And it also looks like he's quite keen on keeping transactions below 10,000 US dollars. Has this behaviour raised any concerns with you?
Look, Tonya, it's really quite simple. He's just a man trying to get on and start a new life, yeah? He's turning over a new leaf. What's wrong with that?
Exactly.
Well, we'll talk about this particular case a little bit later. So, Douglas, I don't know if you have any questions?
Thank you, Tonya. I've got a question on this file for Andrew. Here I've been looking at a number of personal due diligence questionnaires that have been completed for the directors of the companies, one of which has his career listed down as caretaker for a school.
Can I have a look at that?
Yes, certainly.
Yes, that does appear to be correct.
Well, could you explain that to me?
Well, if you look a bit further down, you'll see that he was removed as a director over a year ago. So,
Right. And do you know whether or not he's a director of any other companies?
well, I think he's a director of another 2, but, well, we can arrange for him to be removed, can't we?
If that's what they want.
On this file, I'm looking at an African PEP. He's the UBO of this company. It is rated as high risk. Reviews have been done, but I've got some questions over the source of wealth. It's got listed that he owns a number of properties in Kinshasa. Could you explain a bit more about that for me?
Which client? Is that Mufasa?
Yes.
Well, I personally visited the client and he showed me around the properties.
Can you explain to me what you mean by showed you?
Well, we walked around the capital and he went, that's my building and that's my building.
Right, so he didn't provide you with any documentation showing ownership of the properties?
No, he doesn't need to because I trust the guy. I've spent the night at his house, I've had dinner with his family. There's no issue there. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know what I'm doing.
What more do they want?
I'm not disputing that you trust this individual personally. What I am questioning is documentation to verify a high-risk individual. That's what we would expect.
Look, I know Mufasa, okay?
Okay, well, I haven't got any further questions, so Wade, do you have anything?
Nothing more from my file reviews, but we have written our file review questions down. If you could have a read through them and send some answers back, and if you have any supporting documentation, we'd appreciate that as well. But just to finish, did you have any questions of us before we...
Not for me, thanks.
No, nothing from me.
Just one. Who do you expect us to reply to these questions to?
You can use me as your primary contact.
Oh, that's good. Tonya, do you have your business card?
Yes, I do.
Thanks very much. Does it have your personal number on it?
As we can see, the on-site team felt the visit concluded differently to their initial expectations. The board advised the Commission in the opening meeting that their business had a low risk appetite. However, it became apparent from the meetings, file reviews and discussions that the firm's risk appetite is far from low. The firm did not adequately demonstrate that they have the appropriate policies, procedures and controls in place to mitigate the risks of terrorist financing and money laundering.